Inspiring interviews with today's top landlords. This is the Rental Income Podcast. And now, Dan Lane.
Athena, you've made a lot of money with a pretty low-risk strategy of house hacking. What do you think the biggest thing is that you've learned since you've been investing in real estate?
Well, Dan, I never thought that I could sit here and say that you really do not need to have a huge portfolio to actually make a huge amount of money off of real estate. I myself have learned that investing in the right markets in the right places, I've made over $600,000 off of just a handful of properties. So it's possible for you too.
On the podcast today, Athena is going to walk us through how she's made a fortune with a very simple strategy of just buying a house to live in, renting out rooms, and after a couple of years, buying another house and doing it again. Joining us on the podcast today from Denver is Athena Brownson. We'll take a quick break to thank our sponsors. We'll come right back and we'll talk to Athena. It's a lot of work to find a really good rental property. And when you actually find that property, you want to make sure you're working with a lender that can get that loan closed. The lender that I recommend is Chaley Ridge from Ridge Lending Group. She's a nationwide lender, and her specialty is helping investors finance rental properties. She has a ton of loan programs, and she can find something customized to you for your situation. If you want to find out more or you're ready to get started today, just go to ridgelendinggroup.com. That's RIDGE lendinggroup.com, NMLS 42056. Investing in rental properties can be complicated, but it doesn't have to be. My friends at Mid-South Homebuyers sell completely rehab turnkey properties in both Memphis and Little Rock, and they've been doing it for 23 years. All their properties come totally rehab. They put on a new roof, new kitchen, new bath, new plumbing, new electric. Everything is brand new. They also have a tenant that's moved in before you close, so you get cash flow on day one. Mid-South Homebuyers also continues to manage the property for you after closing. It couldn't be easier. Everything is 100% done for you. All their properties also come with a couple of guarantees. They have a 1-year total maintenance warranty and a lifetime occupancy guarantee. Personally, I just closed on my 5th property with Mid-South Homebuyers, and I couldn't be happier. If you want to talk to a happy customer, reach out to me. I'm happy to answer any questions, or you can check them out at midsouthhomebuyers.com. Athena, let's start things off talking about your portfolio. What does your portfolio look like today?
So I currently own, honestly, only just 2 rental properties and a property that I'm developing, and then my own home. So like we said, you really don't need a huge portfolio to really have a big lasting impact on your life.
Yeah, that's pretty incredible. So what got you first interested in buying rentals?
I never would have considered renting any properties. I had no background in doing so, but my first boss, the first mentor I had in real estate, his advice to me was, buy a property, live in it for 2 years, and then make it a rental. So every property you walk into, look at it from a rentability aspect in terms of looking at the appreciation of the neighborhood, how well it's continuing to appreciate over the last 10 years, where you think it's going, and also what are the factors in the property that are going to make it a great rental in 2 years. So that has been my blueprint, and I'm so grateful to have had that advice.
Yeah, that's really good advice to have, especially being starting out in your career. And I assume you were probably pretty young at the time.
I was just gonna say, telling that to a 24-year-old that does not know what they're doing was one of the best things that ever could have happened. I had no idea what I was doing, but
right, so yeah,
I found my way.
So let's figure that out. So you're 24. I assume you probably don't have much money.
I had almost no money saved up, so I had a very minimal down payment. I did have a co-signer. I think that if you're young and you're interested in investing in real estate, There's so many preconceived notions about how much down payment you need that are false. And looking at the option of having a co-signer, whether that's a family member, an investment partner, but someone that can go in on that loan with you, maybe bring some funds to the down payment to get rid of your PMI potentially. But I was 24, like I said, I had a co-signer, and together we put a total of 10% down.
Okay, so that's not a huge down payment. And
Not at all.
so what did you buy? What was that your first property?
I have to say I've learned through messing up, and I think that's the best way we learn in life. And that's the only property that I didn't keep as a rental, because I bought a property built in 1890 that I thought that I had the bandwidth at that point to really fix up and make into the gem that it so needed to be. But like I said, I didn't have a ton of money at the time. I was working really hard at real estate to build my career, but it just wasn't the property. But I had strategically picked it in a neighborhood that I knew was one of the quickest appreciating neighborhoods in Denver. And because of that, when I went to sell it 2 years later, I had gained over $120,000 in equity in those 2 years. And that enabled me to put 20% down on the next property that I did buy and keep and still own today.
That really is the magic of real estate right there, that you just did whatever you had to do to get into the property. That property
Boom.
Appreciated, and now you've got money to make your next move. You've got a down payment for your next property. So
It's all strategic.
so was this a property you bought as a rental, or were you living in this property?
The second property or the first property?
The very first property.
Oh, so this was a great house hack that I did unintentionally at the time. So I bought this property to live in, and I just happened to have two girlfriends that recently had moved to Denver and were looking for more of a short-term place to live, but they ended up living with me a little over 2 years, and having those two roommates that I never planned on having actually paid my mortgage for me completely. So all the money that I was planning to put into the mortgage every month, which at the time was, about $2,500, I was able to put into savings. I've always been a really big supporter of having a diversified portfolio. So I put it into a fund that I knew was also going to be growing. And that was then also able to contribute towards my next properties. So having roommates is not overrated, even as an adult.
Yeah. I mean, talk about a home run deal. So you bought this property, you lived there for free for 2 years. And then when you sold the property, you made $120,000. I mean, that is like textbook perfect. I mean, that is so
unintentionally.
Awesome. Yeah. All right. So now it's 2 years later. What did you buy with the $120,000?
Okay, so I'd like to say I was a little bit less green at this point. I knew a little bit more about what I was looking for in a property. And I found a really lovely ranch home that was renovated really well. It was a flip, but it was done well. And I think, we see a lot that are done poorly, and you have to be very careful about what you're investing in and understanding what costs are going to be coming up. So I found a property that had new electrical, new plumbing, new sewer line, new roof, really checked all the boxes. And it was a 3-bed, 2-bath. So I really I always recommend, if you can get a second bathroom, that's huge for rentability, just making sure that you've got space. So I really picked this property based on A, how it was going to rent in the future, and B, the fact that it had a lot of the major expenses that were just replaced. And it was in a neighborhood that I knew was appreciating steadily, and because it had some of the top rated public elementary schools in all of Denver. So I knew that it was a very desirable area.
When you went into this property, you were thinking, this is a property I'm going to live in now, but you were planning on holding this property for a long time. Did you
Yeah, and
have
I still own it. Yeah.
did you have roommates at this point too?
This I moved in and I said I'm gonna live alone this time. Nope, I immediately got a roommate, and that roommate paid over half my mortgage again every
Okay,
month. So
awesome.
it allowed me to save.
All right, so now you've got a little bit of a housing payment, but I assume you're probably a little further in your career. You're making more money. You can afford to pay the mortgage. At that,
Exactly.
okay,
And it was I think I was paying less than maybe about 900 a month
okay.
after utilities. So very, reasonable.
And if you were to look at today, how much has that property appreciated since you've bought it?
Man, that's been one of my greatest investments. So I purchased that property for 600,000. It's now worth about 950.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
incredible. That is
And
really
that's without
incredible.
having done anything to it. It is
Wow.
the same as it was when I bought it.
Did you live there for 2 years?
I did. It was
Okay.
almost 2 years on the dot. And then I found a very unique opportunity that I couldn't pass up.
What was the next property you bought?
So I met a developer, a local developer, who turned a old church into townhomes. So he took a very beautiful old church with Gothic windows, and it still had the steeple in one of the townhomes, and turned it into six very modern, very well laid out townhomes. And it was like having a brand new property, but it had that wow factor. And again, it was in a really popular part of Denver, so it was definitely a completely different demographic when it comes to renters and people that wanted to be in the area. It was a lot younger. But I knew just looking at it was, I mean, my interest rate at that time, I still own that property, was 2.75. I got an incredible deal from the developer because I'd been walking the property with him since, basically he bought it. And I knew that the floor plan was, again, it was a 2 bed, 2 bath, a little bit smaller, but I knew that based on the wow factor and the location, that not only would it be an amazing future rental for me, but it would also appreciate incredibly because
Yeah.
it was very unique.
Was it hard to finance that property?
You would think it was, but it actually wasn't. And luckily, it was the public, or I guess the legal description was not a condo. I think that's a big one when you're going to invest in a property. It is, is it a condo? Is it a townhome? It does change the financing. So these are things you want to talk about with your agent or your lender. This property was a townhome, and it was extremely easy to finance. In fact, it was a little bit competitive, and my lender was able to close it for me in 10 days, and that made our offer a lot more desirable. A little bit more similar to cash. So that's another reminder, is to really be strategic in who you're using as a lender and making sure that they can get the deal done for you, because we needed to move quickly.
So you've got a six townhouses in this building, and I guess you were living in one and then renting out the other five.
Oh no, I only bought one of them.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
okay.
I wish I could have bought
Oh,
all,
okay,
but
okay.
no,
So
I bought one.
bought one. Okay. All right. So you're living in one of the townhouses, and were you renting out rooms too at this point?
In this property, I actually ended up, again, it was one of those, I'm going to live by myself. And again, I ended up having over 2 years, three friends that needed more short-term places to live. And because it was a little more short-term, I was able to charge a little bit more. I like to think of it as like my own corporate rental.
Hmm.
But, I again had over half my mortgage paid. And the first property that I had mentioned that bought to rent out was cash flowing extremely well at that point. So I
Hmm.
was also making what I like to call mailbox money from that property, because I set it up with a property manager. It was very hands off, but I still had about $600 a month coming in from it.
All right. So then you lived there in the townhouse for 2 years again?
Indeed.
Okay.
A little over 2 years. And then I found a property that I just couldn't pass up. I think that happens a lot with when you're a real estate agent, and that's the home I'm in today. And believe it or not, I've got a roommate doing the same thing.
That's great. So, I mean, you've really built your portfolio with house hacking. Every property you've bought, you've moved into it, you've gotten roommates, and they've helped cover the cost.
Unintentionally, yes, that's exactly what I did. I was very strategic always in the type of property that I wanted, the neighborhood that it was in, kind of having that foresight. But I honestly never expected to love living with people as much as I always have. And that has been one of the biggest things that has enabled me to save and really being strategic as well with my savings. So I always say, like, just because you're an adult doesn't mean you can't have someone
Right.
else helping pay your bills.
Right. Okay. So your portfolio today is that second house that you bought, your townhouse, and then the house you live in.
Correct. And then I'm also building, my dad was a developer, so he is my partner, and we're about to get our CO and finish our first single family home that is actually right behind the second property that I own still. And we're about to, we'll probably wait till spring to list it, just see what the market does. But that was a $350,000 home that we scraped, and we're going to be selling that property for about 2 million.
Wow.
So also a good house hack, I would say,
Yeah.
building.
All right. So with the properties that the three properties that you currently own, you've got over $600,000 in equity between those three properties. Do you ever think about tapping into that and using that
Yes.
to buy more?
Yes, and I think that's the key, and it's something that I have not leveraged enough, and that is leveraging your equity. I mean, when you're sitting on equity, large amounts of equity, there's no reason that you should not be and if you're interested, of course, purchasing more. And that's my next move. The property that I'm in now, I want to stay put for a little longer than 2 years. So rather than moving again, I will absolutely be leveraging the equity probably in this property that I'm in now, and then leveraging some of the equity in my rentals so that I can buy I'm interested in buying more of a multifamily. So potentially 4 to 6 unit would be my ideal, but we'll see.
Yeah. I mean, it's such a simple strategy that you did where you've just moved up. I mean, as you've gained more equity, you've moved up, you've bought another property. I mean, this is something I feel anybody could do what you've done.
Exactly. I think that's the point that I really want to get across, is that I was I was young. I did not have experience in investing in real estate. I had great mentors around me that were helping me to make good decisions. And I think having mentors or someone that can guide you through that is important. But like we said, I did not have a ton of money saved up for a down payment. I was very young. I needed a co-signer. I wasn't making a ton of money, but I knew that if I could get my foot in the door in real estate, that's when you really get the ball rolling, and you're enabling your future. And real estate it gives you the ability to have to own many more properties and to grow wealth long term in a way that it's very difficult to find any other investment that can really do what real estate does.
Athena has definitely done well with her rental properties, and no doubt being in a city like Denver that's growing has definitely helped. But what I really liked about Athena's story is this wasn't a get rich quick overnight story. Athena worked on buying properties and moving up and making smart investments over a 10-year period. And after 10 years, she's built a lot of wealth. And I really, really love that. Well, if anybody is investing in the Denver area, Athena is a full-time realtor and she would love to connect with you. I've got her contact information on the website. You can find it at rentalincomepodcast.com/episode 499. I'd like to thank Chaley Ridge from Ridge Lending Group for sponsoring today's episode. If you're looking to buy a rental property, whether you're just getting started or you want to add to your portfolio, reach out to Chaley. She's a nationwide lender. She has a ton of loan programs. And if you want to find out more, just go to ridgelendinggroup.com, NMLS 42056. Thank you so much for checking out the podcast today. Make sure you hit the follow button. I put out a new interview every single Tuesday. And if you're following the show, you'll never miss an episode. My name is Dan Lane, and this has been the Rental Income Podcast.